Covenant Community Connect. This is February 4th, 2025 AD, or Common Era, or the year of our Lord, whichever you prefer. And we are glad today to have with us. Welcome, as I've said, welcome you all. So relax for the next maybe 20, 25 minutes or so. I want you to have your ears and heart open to the words and this interaction with Brother Michael Lyle Jr. Michael Lyle Jr. is morning anchor at KUNC, but also I'm going to let him do more introducing. We only have about 20, 25 minutes. So in this Black History Month, as we're looking at Blacks in media, we want to get an inside look from Brother Michael, and in whatever ways he can inspire us, or just to tell his story. We want to let it be. So good morning, or good morning to you out in Colorado, and good afternoon from here in Florida. Brother Michael, how are you today?
Doing good, doing good. Thanks for having me on to talk. I really appreciate this.
Great. Tell us just a little bit about your present post, and a little bit of your journey in coming into what you've been doing.
Well, I'm here in Colorado, as you mentioned. I work at KUNC here in my studios in Greeley, just outside Denver. I've been here for 2 years. I work as a morning news anchor and a reporter here for Morning Edition. It's the localized national public radio broadcast magazine program, but we have a localized version that I work for here every day from 6 a.m. until 10 a.m. local time. So I just got off the air not too long ago. It's a routine that I do every morning. I'm coming into the studio at 5 in the morning, cranking out news and articles and getting scripts and all kinds of information ready to go before I get on the air at 6 o'clock. And then I'm ripping it all the way for 4 hours straight till after 10 o'clock, and I'm done for the day. Well, I'm done for that particular part of the job, but there's more to it.
Yeah. Well, how long have you been in the Colorado area?
2 years now. I moved out here from Connecticut after spending 20 years out east. So this is my first time out here on the West Coast of my life. And I gotta tell you, it's a different vibe out here. I actually on the West Coast. So yes, it's really different in a sense, but I like the atmosphere out here. I think it's a lot more chill. It's more relaxed. It's not too heavy. It's not too on the edge like I used to deal with out on the east. But yeah, still a need to do work out here, but it's a lot more not as strenuous, if you will.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your development out there on the East Coast.
Well, I was born and raised in New Jersey. That's where I'm originally from. I'm originally from New Jersey. I went to college at Howard University in Washington, D.C., where I just came from, by the way, from a weekend trip. I studied journalism there for 4 years in the nation's capital, and I pretty much honed my craft when I was there. You know, my first job in the business was at ESPN in Connecticut after I graduated from Howard. So I started working there behind the scenes in their radio division. I was there for 6 years. And while I was studying at ESPN and working there, I went back to school to get my master's degree at Quinnipiac University. That's also in Connecticut. And I also started doing more localized radio reporting when I was there. So I kind of dipped my toes into other areas outside of the ESPN because I wanted to be more of an on-air reporter. And before I became a broadcast, I was a print reporter for a long time. So I learned to write before I transitioned into broadcast. I mean, occasionally I still write, but I was a newspaper reporter before I went into broadcasting. So I kind of intertwined the two mediums to where I'm at now, making me a versatile reporter and news anchor.
Okay, so when did you get some would call it, when did you get the bug, the idea that you wanted to be in media? When did that happen?
When I was in high school. I was a junior in high school, and I was a big sports junkie like I am now to this day, still a sports junkie. And I always envisioned that I wanted to be covering all the big events as a sports reporter since I was not going to be a pro athlete. I knew that right away, even though I played sports in high school, but I knew the NBA or the NFL or Major League Baseball or even the NHL were not going to come a calling for me to play pro sports. So I figured if I can't play it, I can report on it, talk about it, and still go to the events and cover them and get paid for it, which is always a good perk, of course. You get paid to do the work. Right. So that's where it all started in high school. And even to that day, it has not left I have not lost that passion since. Long time. Going back to 1990 high school. That's when I got that bug.
What year was that?
1998.
1998.
Wow.
Well, tell me this: if you were speaking to your younger self and you were starting over all again, or someone, or maybe in high school, and what kind of advice would you give them if they believe? Because sometimes you really don't know until you're actually in it whether you really want it. But what kind of advice would you give for that, for someone who might have that?
Tell them that you need to be a hardworking individual. You want to be persistent in your pursuits of what you want to get out of life. My parents were very staunch and stern about the fact that if you want to get something out of life, you have to work for it. You can't have it hand spent food, or it can't be given to you, or you have to actually go out there and grab it. And you have to be aggressive because everybody wants something out of this life too. And if you sit things come to you, you're gonna miss out. So I was always taught persistence and aggression are always going to be your best friend, because those are the ones that usually get through because they are committed and dedicated to wanting to do something. Especially, doesn't matter if you're in media or whatever the case, whatever professional career you want to go into, if you're passionate about it, you will do what is necessary to get to that level and be happy with it. And you never stop wanting to be hungry either. Even though I've been doing it 22 years, I still find myself wanting to do more. And I think that's a good trait all have, because it's always good to know that you're still not satisfied. You've accomplished a lot, but you always want to continue to do your very best, because let's face it, there's always someone out there that's going to try and be better than you are. So you got to remember to stay at the top of your game and hold down your fort and your place and your position, so that you don't get overstepped by somebody else that probably might be a little more aggressive and more passionate than you are.
Right. Well, you have a young face, but you said 22 years, so that makes you a vet. So I guess I want to know, along the 22-year path, are there people, whether you want to name their names or not, or just express how so, if this is an appropriate question, have there been people along the way in this field that have been mentoring you or who have mentored you, even if they didn't know that they were mentoring you?
I wouldn't say I had a mentor, honestly. I do mentoring, which is funny because I do mentor a lot of young professionals. Burns, but I have not had I never did have a mentor. I had good professors in college that showed me the ropes on how to be good at my profession. That I can know and attest to. And a lot of that was also on the graduate level too, because I had a lot of advisors that worked for me that showed me how to be more adamant about the work I was doing, more equipped and more in tune with what I was going to have to be dealing with, because technology changes. So they were always telling me, you should learn how to do this, and you should also learn how to do this as well. You should learn how to do this, because in about 5-10 years from now, you're going to see the industry is going to change to where you're not going to just be doing just one thing. You're going to have to be doing multiple things, which I'm. So if anything, they gave me the guidance to be ready for the future, which is where we're at now. And I'm always forever grateful. And they also taught me to do something different than just sports, because I was just, like I said earlier, I've been a sports guy for a long time, but everybody wants to be in one position in this business, but everybody can't get that same spot, because I buys for it, but you got to be different and have a different approach to it. So I do news, I do a little bit of everything that makes me versatile. So I may not be a sports reporter per se, but I do have the opportunity to cover that section of news, because there is sports related to news these days. It does happen.
As you mentioned that part about being ready, your desires for sports, but before the interview, I wrote down a couple of names I'm sure you're familiar with, but I'm not sure how familiar you'd be with them in real time, because they kind of got out there when I was a child. And they're the Gumbles, both Greg and Brian. And yes. I remember that when I don't even remember which one showed up. I believe that Greg showed up first, but they were on all of a sudden there was these black guys who were doing things. They were on sports, and then there's this other one comes up. Oh, it's another Gumble. There's no way that half the people in media are named Gumble. They got to be related. But then I recall they went back and forth from different venues, from sports to news to interviews to popular events, social events, cultural events, and then some of the long play interviews that happen. But so when you describe that flexibility part, we just lost Greg Gumbel not that long ago. Really. But do you recall how much of a part of your youth do you remember seeing them or others? I would say other blacks in the media as far as interviews, news or sports.
Oh yeah, I used to watch Greg and Brian Gumbel all the time. In fact, Brian Gumbel used to call play-by-play for NFL games, and he did a lot of reporting for NBC back in the day. So I am well versed about Greg and Brian Gumbel. The Gumbels were always among my favorites. Another one who was among my favorites, who I actually got to meet in person years ago, was James Brown.
He's been around.
Yes, he's been around forever. He's another one who I met in my walks of this industry and got to talk to him. One person who I would like to meet one day who I've not met is Gus Johnson.
Gus Johnson, tell me about him.
He's a big time sportscaster. He works for Fox Sports now. He's been on the call for college basketball games. He's got such a passionate voice. Whenever you hear a game that's exciting, he always brings that favoritism and that Homer fan base enthusiasm that you will want to see as a fan, because you know that's a big time moment and it's a big time game, and he brings that energy. And not only that, he's a Howard alum.
All right. He graduated from Howard U. All right, as the song. Yeah. So when you mentioned Gus Johnson, now do you see yourself in that type of position, or you have your present position? I don't want to. I don't want to just say anything that may have the people who hired you look at you like, hey, where you going? Don't go anywhere yet, or anything like that. But as you mentioned, people do have higher heights, and maybe you can touch a little bit about some of your dream job. You mentioned doing some of possibly doing something like what Gus Johnson does. But have you had any play-by-play in the past?
I have, actually. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, I was actually on ESPN out here. I was actually tapped to do some color commentary for a local college's women's basketball team here, and it was fun. It was my first ever ESPN TV gig that I was called to do because I cover the teams out here. Northern Colorado is right around the corner from our station here, so I do a lot of coverage with them, and we cover the. So the guy that was there, one of the sports information directors, saw me at the game one night. He said, "Mike, I need a color commentator for our women's game on Saturday. Are you in?" I said, "Sure." And before I had gotten this job, I had told him that I used to do color commentary when I was in Connecticut for another college. University of Hartford women's basketball team was my first job of being a color commentator, covering the team, traveling with the team, home and away games. So that's where I learned the craft. All this goes back to when I was in Connecticut, learning all the stuff for the rules, the trade before I came here. So I told the guy, I did color commentary for years out there, so I know what I'm doing. I work as a reporter. If you love basketball, you know what game, you know what you follow it, you cover it, then you should know how to break down all the different plays.
Right. Well, as you mentioned, like with Gus, you got to have the right voice and the right presentation for it too. Yeah, I know plenty of people who know it, but they can't talk about it.
A lot of guys that do it, but you got to have a personality too, and you got to have knowledge of that game. And a lot of these guys today, they always say, well, the analysts, the former athletes, but they play the game and they know it. Although some people may question that they may not belong there because even though they were a former athlete, they don't necessarily can translate from being an athlete to a broadcaster that quick.
Right. Yeah. Well, what was it like? Was this last one? Was this the first time in a long while that you had done it, or?
Yes, it was. It was my first time in years I got to be on color commentary. It was really nice.
Yeah. Well, how did it feel for you?
It was great. I mean, I had fun with it. I mean, we worked together. I work together with people because, like I said, I have chemistry. I know I have a job that is fun. Who would like to be sitting courtside calling a basketball game that you get to watch in your own right in front of you? And what's even better is the home team that you're calling the game for is winning, which makes it more exciting.
The one you're calling for is winning,
right?
Well, who you pulling? Tell us about this landing in Colorado. We know you've been around Coach Prime. What other sports team in the Colorado area have you been around in the last couple of years?
As you mentioned, I did cover Coach Prime. What's interesting is that Coach Prime came out here a month after I arrived. So I was joking with coaches, you followed me out here because a month after I got here, when I moved out here, he was hired the next month as the head coach now for Colorado football.
Right.
So I've covered him since he's been here, and it's been fun to cover him. There's been a lot of speculations about him leaving for the NFL, but I think he's going to stay put. I know people are asking him to go to the NFL, but I think he's happy here, and he shows it. But it's been fun covering the teams here. I cover, like I said, UNC, Colorado State's another school across town in Fort Collins where I cover. They have some programs there. One team I have not covered yet, though, is Air Force. I want to get down to Air Force.
Oh, yeah. Right.
That's one place I have not covered yet. It's all the way down towards the end of the state, so that's a nice little. That would make for a weekend trip probably down there to Colorado Springs.
Yeah. Well, tell us where your heart is when it comes to media. I mean, the heart of hearts. It sounds like it's sports.
It's sports, but I
also go ahead.
I like being a voice of information in the news every morning here, and that's why I take great pride in doing this job because it allows me to tell people stuff that they don't know about that they can't get from other sources.
Right.
Which means there's an emphasis on me doing my job consistently here and make sure the audience tunes in and get what they're looking for, and it is consistent.
Right.
This whole new generation of media that they're talking about now, that's not who we are. We tell the facts, we report it, and they get what they need, especially in our own communities, because people can turn on the news and get national news. They come to they want to hear what goes on in their own backyard. And there's a lot that goes on in community news too. I think that's the problem with media is that there's got to be a more heavy investment in local, hyper-local journalism.
Yeah. Well, wise one person once said all politics is local. Well, all news is local
It
somewhere.
is. It is. There is news. Believe me, there is. It's
There's
out there.
always news.
There is. There's always
Well,
news.
for anyone who hasn't caught you on the morning show so far, I'm going to give them the opportunity again to let them know how they can. If you're in another state, would you be able to lock in on to hear you some way other than being right there in Colorado?
Yeah, they can turn on their app, which we have a station app. It's KUNC. Just search it in your Apple or Google store, wherever it may be. And you can follow us online. We have a website. It's kunc.org. Uh, like I said, the time difference is the only thing. I'm on mountain time, so we're 2 hours behind. So that would be the only thing. Just make sure you adjust your clocks 2 hours.
Right. Well, you got more time to get ready for it. So, if you're on the East Coast, you do.
The East Coast is already up and at it. I'm just getting up and getting to start around 5 in the morning. It's already 7 o'clock out. You guys are already halfway through your day.
For anyone who hasn't caught the show so far, give us a little bit of a view of what that morning is like once you get there. If you want to say what it's like before you get there, that's fine too. But
it's dark out here. I mean, it's usually we have another station in our building. We have a music side too that plays music all day long. So that's our sister station. So he's the other guy that does the disc jockey in the morning. So it's usually we're the first two in the building to start our day. Everybody else is coming in later in the morning after we get started. So I usually come in 5:15. I'm starting to do my scripts and my prep work before I go on the air at 6 o'clock. So I have to comb through resources, news sites, newspaper sites. If there's a breaking story that happened overnight that I missed, I have to find out in the morning from my editors what it is that I have to be attentive to. So there's a lot to dissect before I get started. And then even with the show, when it goes on the air, you never know. There's always news breaking. It's going to happen. So I have to stay on top of that as part of the job.
Always breaking news. I don't know if you've heard or not. I don't know. And for the listeners, I don't know if you know, there's a big football game coming up this weekend.
Yes. And
tell us about that.
Yes. And I will actually be going to New Orleans this weekend, by the way, for that big game. I'm leaving on for the Super Bowl in New Orleans. And yes, it's going to be a fun weekend. I was just talking to one of my colleagues now. They're asking me the questions, who's going to win? Listen, I think Philadelphia can beat these guys. I think Philadelphia can beat Kansas City, but I just think that the politics that have played the role for the Chiefs the last several years and even this season are going to factor in again. I think the Chiefs are going to, I just think they want to see a three-peat.
Okay.
I'm going to fight because neither of my teams are playing, but I just think that I think Philadelphia can beat them, though. I would not be surprised if Philadelphia beats them because I think they can beat them.
That's a pretty strong news comment right there. It's like I think the politics. Tell us what you think the politics are.
It is here in Denver, around these parts. They don't like the Chiefs anyway, so they would prefer the Fed. Chiefs are like the eternal rival here, so they don't like the Chiefs in these parts.
How much of an eye did you have on the Denver Broncos this past season?
We covered them. This is what runs to stay here. I mean, they got 5-6 different sports teams here.
Right.
But this is all about the Broncos in this part of the country.
Yeah. Looks like they're making a comeback.
They did. They had a great year. They have a good quarterback. Bo Nix had a great year. They made the postseason after 9 years. I mean, fans around here were starving for a postseason berth. It finally happened, even though they got knocked out in the first game. But they took a step forward that a lot of people didn't think was going to happen to begin with, because some were saying they weren't even going to make the playoffs this year. Some thought they were last year. So they won 10 games and got into the postseason. That was highly exceeding the expectations of many around here, myself included.
No, I forgot to ask you, is this the first Super Bowl will this be the first Super Bowl that you've attended?
No, in person, yes. I mean, I covered the last Super Bowl. The first one was back in 2021. That was the COVID Super Bowl. That was the last time Brady won his 7th ring and beat Patrick Mahomes. That was my first ever time being a part of that, but it was only remotely because, as you know, the world was still shut down at that time. So it wasn't like we could go to Tampa that year. But
yeah, it was here in Tampa, yeah.
This will be the first one on site, though, for me, so I cannot wait.
Great. Now, we're gonna be rounding this off in a minute here, so you can get to your next event. Is there anything else that you would like to share with anyone viewing about what you're doing or anything else?
Well, I just look at it like this. Like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. I tell anybody that wants to be a part of any professional club, you got to have a passion for it. You got to want to do it. You have to be aggressive about it. If you're not really so sure or certain, then I would say don't even consider it, because you're just going to waste precious time that you can be putting energy towards something else that's more useful. And things won't happen when we want to. We live in a society where we're in a win now approach. It took me a long time to make my stuff manifest, and it does take time. Everybody's time frame is different. We have a different approach to doing things, and we always want this now, we want that now. But the work you put in will eventually manifest, is what I tell people. Stick it out. There'll be challenges. You'll have to make sacrifices. It's life. Also, keep the big man, keep the good Lord in the plans as always, because he is definitely going to see you through every path you walk. And I know he's doing that with me right now.
All right. That's great. Great attitude. And so how's your future looking with that attitude?
Future's looking good. I mean, I'm here to go, like I said, I'm going, something's going right with me now. I'm still here. And listen, even with all the conflict going on in the world, I'm still here. I'm still blessed. I'm happy.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate you, Brother Michael. This is Michael Lyle Jr., the morning anchor for KUNC. You can download the app. Did I say that right?
It's KUNC.
Excuse me, KUNC. You can download the app and catch him. He's in Colorado, 2 hours difference. If you're on the East Coast, he's headed sometime this week. He'll be headed to the Super Bowl. We look forward to seeing him. And for anyone on this broadcast who's being inspired down that same avenue, we look forward to seeing you as well. God bless you. Be blessed and be a blessing.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me. God bless you all too.
Very good.